All right. So, hello and welcome, everybody. So, this conversation today is brought to you by 12 Weeks Wellness, your natural corporate health and wellness provider for over 20 years. My name is Emma Carpenter, and I will be hosting this brief session today. I've worked in the corporate health wellness industry myself for over 20 years, and today I have the great pleasure of introducing you to my guest, my really good friend and a prior colleague, Dr. Brooke Lyons. Welcome, Brooke.
Hi.
So Dr. Brooke Lyons is a registered and discharged psychologist in BC, Canada, and in New Zealand. Dr. Lyons has over 19 years of experience providing psychological support to a wide range of organizations, including private, government, public sector, and nonprofit organizations. In addition to her primary passion of leadership assessment and development, Dr. Lyons supports organizations in the areas of executive coaching, building a respectful workplace, and resolving conflict. She also participates in various national and international speaking events on the topics of women in leadership and personal selection and assessment. Now, Brooke, you also have your own private practice, providing organization development, coaching, and assessment work. And you're a mother of three beautiful girls. And I often ask myself, how do you manage to do it all so well? So that leads us into today's topic when we're going to delve into the complex challenges that women face in balancing work and home life. And we'll talk about what organizations can do to foster a supportive environment where women thrive professionally and personally as well.
Mhm.
So, Brooke, what are some common challenges that women face in achieving work life balance, and how do these challenges impact their mental well being?
Yeah. Well, thanks, Emma, for having me here today. And, I think this is such a great topic. It's something that we can all relate to and think about every single day. It's something that I talk about regularly with my friends and clients. We've only got 15 minutes, so we're just going to scratch the surface today, but hopefully there's some things here for people to think about and take away with them. So I think to answer your question, a good place to start is to think about how we define work-life balance. So a definition I like is being equally fulfilled by the duality of our personal and professional lives. And this might be over the course of a month, a year, not necessarily each and every single day. So this moves us away from that traditional justice scales metaphor. So you think of that scale that has the two things hanging equally at the same height. And I think that scale sometimes suggests that work-life balance means we have to have both these worlds absolutely equal in our lives at all times. And I think that's really unhelpful and frankly quite unrealistic. So instead, moving towards a more relatable understanding. So perhaps a better metaphor is a canoe. So we think of when we're on a canoe in the ocean and we're trying to stay balanced in the water requires constant realignment and adjustment. We're shifting focus from what's immediately in front of us, like rocks, making sure we don't hit them, to what's ahead of us, having to roll with the waves, adjust to the wind. And I feel like managing work-life balance is very similar. We're always having to make those little adjustments and things just to keep us afloat. And sometimes that might change hour by hour, depending on what our priorities are. So we're faced with decisions like, should I stay an hour later at work to finish the report, knowing that then dinner's going to be late by now for the kids? Or should I take a day off work to look after a sick parent, knowing that then my colleague is having to pick that up and there's going to be extra work when I come back? Should I take a promotion, knowing that the pay rise will be great and that sense of fulfillment will be so good? But then it means less working those long hours and having less time with family and friends. So we have to make decisions like this all the time, and it requires that understanding that we're taking away from the personal bucket today by staying late at work, and maybe from the professional bucket next week by taking time off work to support a child, for example. So the challenge in this constant realignment and adjusting is that if we don't have a clear sense of our needs and priorities, it can feel exhausting. And it can feel that we're not achieving what we want to be in either area. So I think the number one challenge is the expectations we place on ourselves as women to be superstars in both areas at all times. And we're conditioned by society to believe that the ultimate measure of a woman's success is how well we manage the household. So you might have heard the comments recently by Harrison Butker, the NFL player, during his graduation speech, where he told the graduating women that their ultimate goal should be to be homemaker. It's made headlines all around the world with good reason. It's pretty shocking, but it shows us that these attitudes are still out there today. And it's not an outlier. So we looked at recent data from the Global Gender Gap report, which was generated by the World Economic Forum. And it shows that women average 24 hours a week on household labor, whereas working men average 16 hours a week. So that's a sizable chunk. And it may be that that's not necessarily true in your household, but in general, women pick up a lot more of the non-work tasks. So there's also the expression mental load. Don't know if this is something you've heard before, but this refers to the intangible tasks. So even if on the surface it looks like we're sharing tasks with a spouse, like maybe they do the yard work and the garbage, we do the inside work, for example, but women still carry the mental load disproportionately compared to men. So these are tasks such as thinking about schedules and upcoming events and the logistics of making sure everyone's needs are met. So some simple examples might be buying a gift for an upcoming birthday party, sending the thank you note after a dinner party. And women tend to carry this mental load significantly more than men. So we've got all of that, those practical extra hours on our demands, demanding our time. Then we've also been told that we have to break through the glass ceiling at work, that we need to be strong, successful career women, that there's no reason anymore to not get ahead in our careers, that women have equal opportunities to men. As an aside, that's not true. There's a whole bunch of research that shows there's still a lot of implicit bias against women, that they're seen as being less effective than men at work, but it's another topic for another day. So when we feel that we're falling short in some way, we can feel that sense of failure, and then we can feel sad, despondent, guilt, shame. And if that's not checked, that kind of self-critical talk can lead to depression, anxiety at the extreme, or just not feeling fulfilled and satisfied at a less extreme level. And we know this from research that women do experience guilt at a much higher rate than men. Women have been socialized to subordinate our needs to those of others. We feel it's selfish a lot of the time to prioritize our jobs. So there's all of that going on. And then alternatively, in order to try and avoid that feeling of not being enough, we might try and kill ourselves to try and succeed in both those areas. So staying up to 2 to sew a kid's costume, or working on weekends to answer emails. And that can lead to burnout and exhaustion. Another common challenge is the judgment that we receive from people around us, such as if we're seen as falling short. So things like you put your work ahead of your family. And a third key challenge is the lack of practical support by organizations, which we're going to talk about a bit later, I believe.
Oh, I love that analogy of the canoe. I've never heard that before. That felt like the Kiwi edition here.
Okay.
And it's interesting you're talking about the lunch too and staying late. We've talked about this in prior sessions as well, where you make that decision whether you're going to work through lunch, or whether you and be able to leave an hour earlier, or whether you're going to take the time and actually take a lunch break where you can mindfully enjoy your eating, which also then really makes a difference in your stress level afterwards, whether you have been fully satisfied during that meal experience. So that it is such a give and take there, and a hard balance to strike there. So you've already covered and talked about some of those sort of key factors that contribute to that work-life balance challenge, but is there anything in particular that you want to add to that?
Well, I mean, there's certain industries, right, that lend themselves to having higher challenges. So so-called high performance cultures. So think of like the KPN, shouldn't identify specific organizations, but junior lawyers, banking, finance, healthcare, medical doctors, tech, where they're expected to work really long hours. And it's kind of that kill or be killed mentality. If you're not taking emails at all times or calls at all hours, then you just simply don't get ahead. So that can be extremely difficult for women who want to get ahead in those roles, and often they're very high salary roles. To have that balance is really challenging. And then there's less intense organizations, but still really unhelpful, such as shift work or rigid hours, where women are required to be on site and to work certain hours. So that makes it more challenging as well.
Hmm. Yeah. And so based on, of course, we have different industries with different challenges as well. But then looking at then some effective strategies that companies can implement, of course, recognizing that in different industries, you'll be able to do different things in terms of flexible work. But what are some effective strategies that you would suggest that companies can implement to support women in achieving work-life balance and maintaining their good mental health then?
Yeah. So one of the most effective strategies is remote work. It sounds simple, but it really is very, very effective. So there was a recent article in Time magazine by Joanne Lipton. She's a Yale lecturer. And she makes a compelling case that because of the rise in remote work opportunities that came about from COVID, women have been flooding back to the workforce in unprecedented numbers. And it's actually that this is one of the reasons that the recession that everyone said would take place hasn't happened. And this was also borne out by the US Treasury Secretary, who said that the strength of the economy is intertwined with the participation of women workers. So this is a very real thing, a very important component for the world, for society. And currently, about 40% of employees can work remotely at least one day a week. And that's stayed pretty steady since early 2022. Unfortunately, it looks like that's going to be changing. And in fact, the common sentiment shared by CEOs in a recent global survey is that there's going to be a mandated return to the office for most organizations by end of 26. So that's a real concern. And the hope is that organizations can recognize that a really effective strategy is enabling remote work because that definitely benefits women workers. Obviously, everything we're talking about benefits all genders, but the focus today was specifically on women. And tied hand in hand with that is flexible hours. So we can really shift the focus for organizations from number of hours instead to productivity, and just recognizing that we don't have these rigid hours anymore unless we have like a shift work type role, that most of the time we can and should be allowed to have some flexibility in terms of when we're assigning times of our day to work. Another strategy for organizations is just to hire more women overall. So we still tend to have less women than men in a lot of organizations. And if we don't have women, particularly women leaders, then they're not going to be as savvy and have front of mind about the need for work-life balance policies and strategies. We need it to be modeled by leadership. So it's not easy enough for leadership to just say, take breaks. They need to be modeling, taking those breaks, taking time off from work to attend their child's track meet, not sending emails of work hours. And then organizations also should be having really family-friendly benefits. So obviously there's more that can be done, but this is a really good start for organizations. And we also know that it's not just about promoting work-life balance, that these policies actually really promote engagement, employee satisfaction, employee commitment. They reduce turnover, they reduce burnout. So they do benefit the bottom line.
So maybe just loop back to, so you talk about the resources and the benefits that organizations can provide that specifically support women or in addition to women. What are some examples of those? Do you just have a few that you could say? I mean, I guess EAP, but what else?
Yeah, it could be really arbitrary. Like some organizations have the mental health days, the personal admin days, where employees don't have to feel I have to prove why I'm taking this day off. They can just take the day off knowing that it's been assigned to them for whatever reason without having to disclose it. I think some organizations have pet days when you get a new pet or when a pet dies. There's a lot of creativity that can happen with it for organizations. I'm sure you have many ideas yourself from your own program.
Well, I mean, so yeah, so of course we have the coaching that we offer as well that greatly supports women in their roles as well to really improve their personal health and well-being. And this is something you and I obviously live and breathe this ourselves as well. Both of us have at some point left an organization where we had a 9 to 5 job and broken away from that to a more flexible work environment where we could really work from home more. So this is something that is we talk about this in our professional lives, but it's something that is very uh, real to us in our personal lives as well. I mean, I right now have a child at home with pneumonia, and I'm very clear on that. My most important job right now is to get her healthy. That is, and I that's a choice I make right now, today, and I think that's an important point as well, that we will always make choices when it's about work life balance, and it's about making those choices and be content with that choice in that moment, because that we have to balance that canoe
Yeah,
anytime over the course of the day and the week and the month and the years, right? So
yeah.
do you have specific strategies that you would recommend to women about what they can do specifically to achieve better balance and maintain their good mental health?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sorry to hear about your daughter as well, obviously, and hope she gets better soon. And I think also just quickly talking back to the previous point that organizations need to trust us as well, and have that trust that if we're making a decision, it's based on the best information we have at that time, and that the work will be done and that our intentions are solid.
Mhm.
Um, I'm a huge believer in self-compassion, and I think self-compassion is one of the best ways that we can combat some of those expectations that we place on ourselves to be a superstar in both those areas, and instead be kind and supportive, and be that person to ourselves that we would ideally want our partners and family to be, but at least we know we can be that voice to ourselves. There's been some really cool research in this topic as well. So there was a European study done in 2019, and it found that women who practice self-compassion did have higher levels of work-life balance, and also higher levels of satisfaction in their jobs. So it's a real thing. Anyone that's interested in finding out how to put this into practice, Kristen Neff, it's Neff. She's written a ton of books and got a lot of free online articles and how-tos, lots of really good stuff there. So a way to practice self-compassion is by allowing ourselves to take regular breaks, like you were talking about with the lunch break, um, just being mindful of our self-talk and changing criticism with compassion and support. If the balance feels off for us, that we can do some honest reflection in a direct way, but compassionate way at the same time. So avoiding any kind of judgmental words, and just but being very honest, and looking at what are our needs professionally, what are our needs personally, are there any gaps, what can we do to address those gaps, and then taking that certain action steps. And it may be having a difficult conversation with our spouse about needing more support around the home, having a difficult conversation with our extended family potentially about not being able to meet so many commitments, maybe with our boss. Maybe we need to consider alternative employment, like you talked about, what we did when we decided to start our families. We may need to say no to certain requests so that we don't get stretched too thin. We may need to ask for help. So these are all specific things that as women we can do for ourselves. At the end of the day, the goal is to establish a stable and sustainable way that we can work while we still stay well and have mental and physical well-being. So I think I just want to sign off. I'm aware of the time. So my final comment is that often work and home life are portrayed as being in conflict, but I actually think that's a false dichotomy. I think when we find satisfaction and purpose and a feeling of competence in our jobs, it enriches the way that we turn up with our family and friends. It helps us be a better friend, wife, partner, mother, daughter, whatever it may be. And on the other hand, being a well-rounded person enriches our professional lives. It helps us be more balanced, more present. So
I love that. That's a great way to end it, Brooke. Thank you so much for all the value that you provided here to our guests today, and we hope to have you back again on a different topic.
That'd be really fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is such a cool topic.
It it definitely it's complex and fascinating all at once. All right. Thanks, everybody. If there's any questions, we'll stick around a little bit. If you want to pop any questions in the chat, feel free to. I will just turn off the recording. All right. Thank you.